For 3 months, there was a lull. But then the cutthroat murders started up again.
And I remember one of the girls, when I came in, saying to me, God, did you hear about they found another body? And I was like, oh my God, you're not serious, that's somebody's husband or somebody's son. And the day went on, and it was on the news reports and the whole bit, and I didn't connect at all with it.
Like so many victims before him, Joseph Morrissey was abducted in the usual place, the Millfield area. He'd been into the city centre for a few drinks, and he was on his way home to North Belfast. His body was discovered in the Glencairn estate, 3 miles from Millfield. He'd been dumped on the ground, right beside this cairn.
After I'd been told it was my father, I looked over into the corner, and my mother was sitting, holding herself, rocking back and forward on the chair, just crying, oh Jesus, not my Joe, not my Joe. Her Joe was gone, And I kind of knew just from looking at her that, it probably would have been kinder, if God had taken her then. Didn't speak, wouldn't wash herself, wouldn't eat. She was pathetically thin, crying all the time. This wonderful, vibrant woman that we'd known, all gone. Everything gone. Almost like somebody had ripped inside her body and taken out anything that was of any value. His eyes weren't closed properly, and that's how I knew who he was. He had the most amazing blue eyes. Pieces of his body had been removed. His nose hadn't been stitched back on properly. He was practically decapitated. And I was very conscious when I bent down to kiss him that his head was they had a steel brace coming up from the top of his spine and something around his neck to support his head. And of course he was covered up to the chin because of the horrific injuries to his neck.
Just over a month later, though, detectives had a lead that was staring them in the face. A kidnap victim of the Shankill butchers survived to tell the tale.
I was going up the Cliftonville Road, up home, and they stopped, told me that they were CID. They said to me that I was wanted in Tennant Street, so I automatically thought they were CID. So I went into the car with them.
On the 10th of May, Jared McClaverty was on his way home around 11:30 from a friend's house. He was abducted and taken to a building on the Shankill Road. It had been a doctor's surgery, but was now derelict. This white building is where Jared was taken to, and again, it's right here in the heart of the Shankill Road. Now, while ordinary people were going about their normal lives, little did they know that Jared would be taken in there for several hours, beaten and tortured.
Meat cleavers and pokers. It's just torture. Tortured me. They asked me if I wanted tea, which I said no. They cut the wrists. They put a bootlace wire around my neck, which I thought they had already been strangled.
In the early hours of the next morning, Jared was dragged into an entry and left for dead, but somehow he had survived. With 19 murders between them, they were at the time the most prolific serial killers in British history. After you, sir. In February 1979, the Crumlin Road Courthouse in Belfast was packed to the rafters with the world's press to hear the sentences on the Shankill butchers. Bring me back. What was happening around here?
Well, you had the relatives of all the accused, the 11 accused. You had probably victims' relatives. You had police. You had barristers, and really tight security here. I remember there were 11 of them, and they all couldn't fit into the dock, obviously. So some of them had to sit outside here, and on the far side. This is where they were, Stephen. You know. Here they come up here, right? Well, all these guys were handcuffed when they were brought up on the dock, one by one. Handcuffs taken off, take their seats. The place was crackling with tension. These were people who had decided enough was enough. We're going to own up to this.
Out comes Lord Justice O'Donnell then for sentencing. What happens?
They all got to their feet, and there's a clerk who read out all the charges. It must have gone on for over half an hour. How do you plead guilty? How do you plead guilty?
The judge said the murders would stand as a monument to blind sectarian bigotry. He sentenced the gang to a total of nearly 2,000 years in prison. But in the naming of names, one was missing. Lenny Murphy.
That was the one name on everybody's lips. That was the one name, the Master Butcher, that we couldn't name. I mean, the judge knew who we were talking about. The barrister certainly knew who we were talking about. The boys in the dock knew who we were talking about.
But even in death, the Master Butcher found enough support in his own community to put a protective ring around him. On his headstone, he was honoured as a military hero. To this day, there are still some who would glorify the Shankill butchers. In 1997, with the Good Friday Agreement less than a year away, more than 1,000 lined the streets for Robert Bates' funeral. On her way home from work, Charlotte Morrissey was caught up in the procession.
I had to stay in my car for 2.5 hours, and there were huge wreaths. For me, it was like they were honouring some sort of a hero. You know, and is that what people really thought about the Shankill butchers? Were they heroes? I found myself trapped in the car, unable to get out or speak. I can't tell you how I felt, but for me the message was, you know, he was a hero. The man who cut my father to pieces and tortured him for 3 hours was a hero.
When William Moore died in 2009, a death notice paid tribute to him with the same epitaph inscribed on Lenny Murphy's headstone.